second.
So what time is it now? 10:18. So we will stop 40 minutes into the recording, right, Brian?
Yeah, we're like 10:10, I think.
Let me.
Oh, we're at 10:10. Brian's clock is fast.
Yeah, I'm fast.
Okay, so
over
we
here.
have up to 50 minutes. Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll start it anyway.
Perfect.
Is the audio okay?
Yeah, the audio is great.
She's very
Fantastic.
Oh,
I mean,
you are a bit echoey, says our production
oh,
team.
your microphone's not on.
Is your microphone on?
It is.
Tap it.
Oh, let me see if it's picking up the right one.
Oh, my microphone. Is it my microphone?
No, I don't think hers is hooked up actually.
Okay.
Can you hear it now?
Can you tap it? Can you tap the microphone? It's not on. It's still not on.
Yet?
No. Check the just double check your the cogwheel on the upper right. And actually I might be able to change it here.
How about now?
No.
You sure not getting it? Because let me change.
Nothing. Oh, I see what your problem is though. Yeah, it's
Let
up.
me see if I can change to the other one. I switched it, but let me switch it back. Oh, it won't let me switch. I'm gonna pop out really quick and switch it back.
Oh, you know what it is?
It won't let me switch
I'm
it
gonna stop.
in recording.
It won't let you do it in recording. Okay, so try it now.
Yeah, I'll pop out and I'll pop right back in.
Well, you can do it right now. I just stopped the recording.
Try.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should be able. No microphone. I see you switching.
This?
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, Queen.
Oh,
Yes.
Beautiful.
I got way too many pieces of tech.
I just want to make sure you sound your best. Okay. We are rolling and ready whenever you guys are.
All right, Dr. Betty, girl, we're gonna get into it today. So glad you're here. I really want everyone to know how you got into the menopause space and what were your personal struggles and your journey in finding the light at the end of the vaginal tunnel.
Actually, I didn't really start in this space. I came into the medical space, especially the functional and integrative side, through my own struggles with a diagnosis with colitis. And at the time I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I asked what I thought was a legitimate question. Could I change my diet and change the trajectory of this autoimmune disease? And the doctor barked this laugh in my face and said it had nothing to do with what I ate. And so that sort of led me down this nutrition path. I went back, got a master's, and was able to actually get my digestive problems under control with a lot of diet and lifestyle and supplementation and other things. And so I got my master's, went out on my own and started working with people, and then opened Living Well Dallas. And then, I had my tubes tied. I had no idea something would happen. And at about 35, and within about 6 months, I started having acne all across my chin, my hair started falling out, my periods got heavier, and everybody said, no, it's all in your head, and I'm like, oh, no. And so what that really did was make me look at that sort of hormonal parade and identify that I was in sort of a perimenopause scenario. And at that time, this is a long time ago, I'm 56 this year, everybody I talked to, including all the functional medicine doctors, were like, no, it's adrenal, it's thyroid, it's this, it's that. And so my kind of trip through my 40s was really unpleasant, really, really unpleasant. And I knew women struggled with autoimmune conditions 10 to 1 to men, like IBS, 3 out of 4. Like all the chronic conditions are predominantly female when you really look at it, particularly the things that disable you for a long period of time or seriously hamper your life. And so I went back to get my master's and PhD and dig in where the literature was really missing. And so as I worked through that in my late 40s and into my early 50s, I was like, this is the hill I'm dying on. We do no research on women. Women spend a third of their life in the menopause and transition and beyond, and we feel terrible. And our risk for disease goes up. And so that's kind of where I came into it, but it was through my own struggles, despite being in this industry, despite being an expert in this industry.
Okay, so a lot of women don't know or don't understand the correlation between what you went through and what they often go through, which is having your tubes tied. What was the physical and medical and emotional events that happen to you. Let's slow it down and kind of review all of that.
Yeah, so I got my tubes tied because I had decided that, I wanted control of my fertility. I didn't want to be on birth control anymore. I definitely didn't feel good on that. And so when I had my tubes tied, they were like, oh, we're going to go in, we're going to cauterize your tubes, right? Which means they're going to burn them and basically separate them. And nothing's going to happen. You're just going to be, infertile at that point. Well, what they don't really tell you, I didn't receive complete informed consent. What often happens is nerves and blood flow to those ovaries change during those surgeries. Because everything's, we draw the pictures with the uterus, here and the ovaries out to the side. That is not what it looks like inside. They're all crammed together. There's nerves and blood flow going to it. And so what can often happen is damage can happen. And so, an ovary can start losing blood flow and nervation, which means that it can start to shrivel up and cause problems. And that's essentially what happened. And what made it even more kind of traumatizing to me is about a year and a half later, my husband and I, swear to God, were in a Home Depot. And we were doing a little bit of remodeling in the house. And all of a sudden, I was like, I'm going to vomit. And he's like, what? And I was like, I am really nauseated. So I start running around, like trying to look for a trash can because I don't know where the bathroom is. And I literally vomit in a trash can in Home Depot. And I had this sharp pain right before it. And I was like, oh, it's for me crawling around on the floor because we were doing flooring. And we go home and I feel really bad, right? And so I lay down for a while and finally a couple hours in, I'm like, I need you to take me to the emergency room. And what had happened, they thought it was an ovarian cyst, sort of poking on me and telling me I'm fine and I need to go to my gynecologist. What had happened is a piece of my fallopian tube that was still there had broken off and was necrotic, that's the technical term for it, and had landed on the interior of my abdominal wall, and I was bleeding internally, all from this cauterization. And they thought it was cancer, and I had to go see. It was a whole thing. And the reality is there's a bunch of things that happen when you disrupt those organs. And I think a lot of women may have had their tubes tied, or may have had ovarian cysts, and doctors sort of dismiss it as no big deal, but it is impactful because that changes your hormone picture, right? And for me, it obviously did. And at the time, we just didn't have enough to understand that. And so I have a lot of sympathy for women that are like, oh my God, like I don't even know what's going on, and it feels really bad. And here's the other more interesting thing, Esther. You would think after that my periods would have gotten easier. They didn't. They started coming every 21 days. They were heavy, right? And so I was anemic all the time, and I ended up getting an ablation again because I didn't know that there was all this stuff going. They're like, we need to do an ablation, which is where they go in and kind of burn the inside so you can't bleed anymore. And so all of that sort of led to this, I felt like I was living in an alien experience in my body,
And gaslit all the while, like to be told it's in your head, that is the worst. We always talk about this. Even my husband, he's like, how can someone deny you what you know to be true in your own body? You are living in your own body. You are so intuitive and wise. All of us are. We are our own best doctor, and it kills me when any woman is gaslit, and then to be a provider and gaslit on top of it is just a crime against humanity, in my opinion. It really is. And then did you go through, can you call it, it's not surgical menopause, you weren't technically in menopause, but your body, do you think your body thought it was in menopause?
I think what happened, and it's interesting because we were talking about kind of being gaslit, so we can get gaslit particularly by conventional medicine, but we can also, I think on the other side, we also can be on our side, right, the integrative, functional side, we can also be really dismissive about women's discomfort and pain when they are trying to decide whether to do these things. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, of course you don't want to do that. You want to protect everything. And I'm like, well, do you bleed every 21 days? And you're so anemic you can't get out of bed? Like, you know what I mean? So I think there's needs on both sides that we are really listening to a woman's experience and helping her navigate, right? Because I definitely had friends on the functional side that were like, oh, why would you tie your tubes? Why would you do this? And I'm like, I don't want to have a baby, and we don't have natural birth control, and what are my options here, right? And I am a child from 1969 that was put up for adoption. I was an accident, right? So the rhythm method is not 100%, right? And so I have so much respect for a woman in those experiences. So I think it's really important to also recognize that side, that we can also be dismissive in the functional side too.
Yes, absolutely. But and what we have to remember is it's your body, your choice every damn time. So it
100%.
really it's like it doesn't matter what other providers think, even in the functional space. And I have to check myself too. A lot of times, I'm very passionate about HRT, but I recognize not every woman wants it. Even if she's a perfect fit, not every woman wants that, and we have to respect that piece of it too. So, okay, so how did you then get it? So you went for another ablation, and then what was your trajectory in healing?
Right. So here's what I think happened. So the big challenge for everyone here, and it's kind of why I went back for my PhD, was when the Women's Health Initiative came out, which was really the only time we'd ever studied women exclusively. At that point, they were like, we're never looking at hormones again for women. Anybody over 40, we just don't care. Less than 1% of all research dollars go to women over 40, unless it's like an infertility journey. And so the truth is we don't have a lot of research to understand what happens. And so for me, what I think happened, here's what I know, is one of my ovaries shriveled up like a walnut and was reabsorbed somewhere in that first couple years. Completely gone. Right? Completely gone. So I remember having a sonogram later on. They're like, where's your other ovary? Did you have it removed? And I'm like, no. And they were like, oh my God, where is it? I'm like, I don't know. And it was literally, your body can reabsorb these. I did not know that could happen. And I think what really happened is because I had one ovary left, I had very inconsistent hormonal, sort of fluctuations. I went into early, non-surgical, but, medically kind of induced alterations to an early menopause. But I was all over the place because I'm also kind of wired to be estrogen dominant. I'm a super curvy girl. And so I really, my roller coaster in my 40s was horrible. Horrible. And so, I have so much sympathy for a woman that's like, what is going on? Yeah. And I can only guess because do we have really good research? Not really.
Well, and two things there. One is that it is ironic, right? Because just because we're providers doesn't make us immune. And I often think God has a sense of humor and is like, ha ha ha, you're going to go through this yourself to make you extra compassionate and really attentive to women's struggles and pains and symptoms.
Yep.
But number two, my brain has completely farted right here on camera.
Yeah, let's do it.
The second thing was the second thing. What is the second thing I was going to say about you went into early menopause? This is my brain. I just had a hysterectomy last month, and I have really been struggling with the brain fog.
As this doesn't happen to people on the healthcare side.
Yes, but also, I'll just say, no, it happens to people on the healthcare side. I'll just say this. A lot of women don't realize that when they go through surgical menopause or having their ovaries removed due to risk of cancer, the BRCA gene, they don't realize the changes in blood flow dramatically shift and accelerate the symptoms that present themselves. And so often, when we're in it, even though we're providers, it catches us off guard. I don't know about you, I wasn't thinking I was in perimenopause when I was in perimenopause. I chalked it up to Lyme or mold. It was right under my nose and I didn't see it. So then how did you figure it out and kind of connect the dots and treat it for yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm going to just say for myself, I would say there's a level of academic arrogance. I'm already doing all the right things. I'm eating right. I'm exercising. I wasn't sleeping well, right? But I never really slept well. I had an airway problem. Just menopause and perimenopause made it 100% worse. But everything else, and I could chalk it up because the stress level at that time in my life was really high. Now has it come down? other things that were very popular in the lexicon, adrenal fatigue, thyroid disorder. I could point to all these other things and say, it's got to be that, it's got to be these other things. Instead of, I'm going through perimenopause early, because at that time, I knew some of the stats, but in my head, it was like, I'm not going to see that till I'm 50, And I'm like, I'm 38, 40, why would I see that now? And so, it's for me, a lot of it is now hindsight. When I went back to get my PhD, while I'm learning how to do research models and all this other stuff, I was combing, because my entire PhD, my research was on how we metabolize hormones, and particularly with the microbiome and IBS in women. That was my dissertation, but I was immersed in that literature. And I keep digging around and finding bits and pieces and going down the rabbit holes and recognizing that it's not just about the estrogen you make, or if you're menopausal or perimenopausal that you take, but it's how you get rid of it, right? And it's what your body does with all these other xenoestrogens. Like there's an estrogenic effect of our environment that we don't have really good handle on. And I think that's why women have a much greater problem with perimenopause and menopause today. And so a lot of my understanding now is in hindsight, because I'm 56 and I went through full menopause at about 48. And so I have, the power of hindsight, which is so fabulous. It just would have been greater if I had it almost a decade ago.
I know. It's the shit that keeps us so humble, isn't it? I mean, it's just like, sometimes you're on your knees and you're like, please God, like I'm here serving, I'm trying to be, taking great care of myself, and I'm still struggling. What is happening? So I would really love to know just what were the most impactful and supportive changes you brought in to give you symptomatic relief and finally level you out?
Yeah, so for me, kind of early on, it was really evident, especially after I stopped birth control, that my progesterone levels were relatively low. I think they always were, because I went on birth control at about 18, and I did not miss. It was like clockwork. So I'd been on hormones for 18 years at least at the time when I had my tubes tied. And so for me, the first intervention was progesterone, and it, to sort of balance things out, because I was very much that sort of estrogen dominant profile, heavy, clumpy periods, painful periods, all of those things, weight gain, all the things that sort of show up. Yeah. And the progesterone helped a little bit, especially in the beginning. But even the other thing that I had to address, and I didn't know that, was I had an upper airway problem from having teeth removed as a child, right? So what that means is that my palate was narrower and smaller, and then that closes off your windpipe basically, because women's windpipe is really small, is really, really small generally compared to a man, and then if you have problems with that, it makes it like a cocktail straw. Well, I'd had that my whole life, right? I never really slept well, but when you're 25, you don't notice that. And so one of the things that I needed to do for sleep, because again, if you don't sleep well, nothing works well, was not only take progesterone and all the other supportive herbs and everything and the hygiene for sleep, but I ended up going through palate expansion, which means growing bone in my almost 50-year-old mouth and expanding my jawline and pulling my jawline forward, which opened up the airway. Because what was happening at night was I was breathing, but I wasn't getting quite enough oxygen to the brain, so my brain was constantly sort of going, hey, what's going on, and so that made an enormous difference. So some of it was getting that sleep dialed in, because my cortisol was off the chart all the time, right? And it's high in women that are perimenopausal and menopausal anyway, but then if you're not sleeping, it's like running a marathon all day in your limbic system and your adrenal system. And I think really I had to get those things dialed in, because in order to balance the hormones, you gotta it's not just looking at one thing. Like hormone replacement and progesterone and estrogen and testosterone is not a panacea. So those things I think really dialed it in. The thing that I missed, and it really came from my research, was it didn't occur to me, and it wasn't really clear, that you could be having a period, right, or going through those sort of cyclic activities and having a period every month, but your overall estrogen level is significantly lower than it was in your 20s and 30s. That just didn't occur to me, right? Never occurred to me while I'm digging through the research. And I was like, because I was terrified of estrogen, right? I was like, I can't go on estrogen because I'm estrogen dominant. And looking started estrogen a lot sooner than I did because I've kept waiting for my hormones to kind of flatline. And I really think that if I had been on a lower dose estrogen earlier, I would have probably fared better. And that's just me understanding the literature now. But dialing that stuff in and then getting on hormones and being able to stabilize with testosterone, with estrogen and progesterone. The other thing that happened to me, Esther, I have to say this because there are a lot of people out there promoting high dose testosterone to women in perimenopause, and they're like, it's gonna make you feel awesome. Okay, so we've done hormones in my clinic for 20 years. And so, we do all forms. And so I was put on testosterone. And dude, did I feel great? Yeah, I had a libido for the first time. I was like looking at my husband like, hey baby, how you doing? And that wasn't happening, right? I was like, I'd rather watch paint dry, babe. And so that felt great. And I had this sort of like turning on of the brain. But I kid you not, I got pellets, right? I tried creams, I tried this, and I was like, I'll try pellets because I'll take one for the team and I'll try everything. And then I run labs because that's what I do. I'm a human lab experiment. I got pellets and I felt awesome, right? What happened? I gained 10 pounds in 3 months, right? I was already chunky. I was already packing extra, junk in the trunk. And I was like, oh my God, and even though I felt great. And they were like, oh, it's water weight. Okay, so I'll go through another, for a year, it's water weight, it's this, it's that. No, it's an anabolic hormone, and if you're insulin resistant, cortisol excess, you're going to get increases in other hormones like, IGF-1, changes in mTOR. I gained weight because I gained weight. And so I was like, oh my God. So the other thing that I did accidentally is fall for the trap that testosterone is going to fix everything, and it doesn't. And we need physiological levels, but we don't need super physiological levels, which a lot of people are promoting. I've done it all.
Okay, I have 5 million questions now, but let me rewind for a minute. When you introduced progesterone, were you still on birth control pills, or had you gone off at that point?
I had gone off, and it was real evident very quickly that I was obviously progesterone deficient. And probably I don't know if I had always been. I never had children, so I don't know if I had fertility issues. People are like, well, did you have a hard time getting pregnant? I'm like, never gave that option.
Yeah, exactly. But it is important for women to know, even if you are on birth control, you can still add in progesterone when you're in perimenopause. Okay, can you talk about for a minute how women, even when they're estrogen dominant, can add in estrogen when they're in perimenopause? Can you kind of talk about the mechanistic effects and the benefits?
Yeah, so even if you're estrogen dominant, so depending on your genetics and your time period of life, almost all women will end up in their 40s as progesterone is on its natural decline, because it declines first, will end up in a relative deficiency of progesterone relative to estrogen, in most cases, in that second half of their cycle, right? And that's where all of our heavier periods, fibroids, mood issues, sleep issues, grumpiness, all of that sort of shows up. Well, in the woman that leans into that estrogen dominance, we have to look at a couple different things. If I have a lot of estrogen on average, I'm going to have a lot of receptors for it, not less, right? And so when we get into that perimenopausal state, when we start to see estrogen fluctuate wildly, I like to say she's on a bungee cord, right? She's all over the place. One day she cliff dives, and you're like, what just happened, right? And she splats, right? But we are all over the place. And so it's in that time period that it is a little bit challenging, even if you are doing hormones. When you put in a little bit of estrogen in the chaotic periods of perimenopause, what you do is provide a stable layer that can counterbalance some of those wild, up to 300, down to 10, up to 300, down to 10, that's probably occurring. Today we now have things like the Mira device and other ways where you can test on a regular basis. I was just running lab work and kind of trying to catch it, because I couldn't even follow a period anymore. Like I couldn't follow a cycle because I had had an ablation. So I think we'll be able to get better data about what's happening. But when you stabilize estrogen in the last half of the cycle or last half of the period of perimenopause, when you are probably anovulatory, so that means no eggs are popping out, right? You may be creating a cyst and a follicle is swelling, but you may not actually have an egg come out every time, which also suppresses progesterone. That if you have a little bit of estrogen in there, your experience of that is probably going to be less so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you're feeding that receptor.
Mm-hmm. And we now know from this amazing study that just came out with, what was it, 140,000 women that show that early intervention with hormones is so beneficial. Can you comment on that study for just a hot minute? I know I'm deviating here, but I just am obsessed with it this week.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to dig in deep because
Okay.
it was a patient week this week, but you know, the reality is we know that if we don't intervene early on in that sort of estrogen, you know, the perimenopause, menopause transition, we have accelerated aging. We have increased aging in our cardiovascular system, shrinking of the brain, changing in the neural pathways, loss of bone. Like there's a significant loss of bone in the perimenopause transition, like up to 20%. Not just after menopause, it happens in that chaotic time period. So when we go in and intervene and we don't wait till you've earned it, i.e. you've gone an entire year without your period, not only do symptoms get better, but the kind of what I like to think of as the ravages of aging are less impactful.
Amen. Amen. That's why it makes me crazy when doctors are, telling women, well, you're still cycling, right? Even though they're anovulatory often, you're still cycling, therefore you can't start hormones. It's like, oh my God, that gorgeous 2-year window in late perimenopause, if you can get in, it is so incredibly impactful.
Yeah, and I think the hard part here is, if we know that the average woman spends 8 years in symptoms, right? The big thing is that kind of ideal 2-year window. We don't really know who's going to hit that 2-year window when, right? Because you're probably still cycling. You're probably so the reality is women, when they start feeling symptoms, and that's not just hot flashes and night sweats. I've never had either one of those. I don't know what they feel like. That's not mine. But as soon as a woman is like, I think this is going on, we should be intervening and providing support, because some women go through menopause, naturally at 47, 48, 45. Some women, I have a woman who's 58 right now who still hasn't. And she's like, when will it be over?
Oh, my heart goes out to
my
her.
mom went through it at 60, and I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh. But, she'd probably have much better bone density and more cardioprotective and cognitive protection. And so,
yeah.
But
yeah,
boy.
She doesn't love the crime scene period, but I'm like, all other activities of aging are protected.
Exactly.
I don't find the humor in that.
No.
Yes. So the thing is we can't really tell a woman with any real validity, are you in that last 2-year window? We don't know. Every single time. So the reality is when a woman feels like she needs it, she deserves to explore it, have individualized care, and have that provided to her. And then I would say to go further to test and make sure their efficacy, and to also make sure that they can metabolize those hormones in a way that's really meaningful and supportive. That's my personal kind of scientific opinion.
Yes. So let's return to the pellets. Okay, so you've been on pellets for a year, you have gained 10 pounds, you got some junk in the trunk, and you know your body, right? And again, everyone gaslit you. It was like, oh, it's just water. And you're like, I am a doctor. This is not okay. So what was your trajectory after that? How did you unravel that?
Yeah, so I need to be really clear too. I had already gained 35 pounds right after my tubes were tied. Like within 6 months. I've been in the bodybuilding community. I did triathlons. I know, I'm a nutrition professional. I have 2 masters and a PhD. I know how to manipulate the body. And I was like, I'm doing the same thing. What is going on? And everybody's like, oh, it's your adrenals finally crapped out. Oh, it's your thyroid, because I already had a thyroid problem. So I feel for everybody. So that extra 10 pounds from the testosterone put me like in a death spiral mentally. What?
Yeah.
So the first thing I did is obviously I didn't continue pellets, right? And my levels were significantly high, right? And for me, I started looking at, I know I need testosterone, I know I need these other supportive things like progesterone, but like what's the best avenue for me? So for a while I took testosterone out completely. Even though it made me feel good, it helped my libido, because at the time, this is my kind of scientific brain looking backwards, I definitely had excess cortisol, insulin resistance, because I was sleeping like, 3.5 hours a night to 4 hours a night because it was completely disturbed and disrupted because I hadn't gone through palate expansion. I had an airway problem and I didn't know it, which is severely underdiagnosed in women. You do not need to snore. I've never snored ever in my life. But I'll give you another gauge. So I sleep 8 hours a night now, all the time. The other thing is I got on a bike. I'm a cyclist. I hadn't been on my bike in like 8 years. During COVID, I got on a bike and I was 2 miles an hour faster than I was at 40. And I was like 52, right? I'm talking, like, I beat my husband. My husband is 6'4", and he's a firefighter, paramedic. He was like, what just happened? I was like, I can breathe. I had no idea that I had, had issues. So I took the testosterone out. I stayed on progesterone. And truly, I suffered, like, I couldn't get that 10 pounds off. It took me probably 2 years to get that 10 pounds off. Quite literally. And so I always worked with complex health problems, oddly enough, hormonal problems, autoimmune issues and things like that with women. But when people called our clinic, I was like, I do not work with weight loss. Because I was like, obviously, I don't know what's going on here. Like, there's something wildly out of balance here, and I can't answer that. So I was like, that is not my thing. But it was once I, kind of went back for my PhD, I understood the airway problem. I understood that I needed estrogen, right? Once I started doing that and sort of supporting those hormones, I was able to lose the weight. So it wasn't like a magic panacea. Like, people sell that too. Oh, if you just balance your hormones, the weight will just fall off. It doesn't happen like that. But it definitely helps,
Yeah. It's a piece of the pie. It's not the whole pie. And so how did you get your narrow airway diagnosed? Was it more than a sleep study? And then how did you find an expert to heal you and fix it?
Yeah, so my first sleep study, I had that at about 42. And, and again, it showed like almost no REM sleep. And so I talked to the sleep doc and I'm like, that can't be good. And he's like, yeah, but you don't have obstructive sleep apnea. You're fine. And I look at what they call arousals per hour. And at the time, during particularly that REM sleep time, there were 42 arousals per hour. And I'm like, well, what is that? And he goes, oh, it's nothing. And I'm like,
no.
And so I do a little bit of digging, and I'm like, I think there's a problem there. And I even went to a conference that was a full weekend of sleep conference, and no one ever talked about upper airway resistance at that time, right? Which is a known diagnosis. We understand it better now. And so about 8 years later, I do it again, because at this point now it's worse, right? And I'm taking a truckload of progesterone. I've got it all dialed in. It's worse. And I do two things. So I do another sleep study. Now it's up to about 62, 63 per hour. I had two that I did them 2 nights in a row. And then I find a dentist. So there's a dentist here in Dallas, but there's several across the United States whose specialty is airway. And they do a cone beam scan, right? So they do a cone beam scan, which is basically a radiological CT scan of your head, and they look specifically at the airway. And there's radiologists that are trained to look at airway. And then they measure it to see kind of where it is, and they're like, your airway is already too small for just where you are standing breathing as an adult standing up. And so then they look at the jaw trajectory, because I had 4 permanent teeth plus wisdom teeth removed, so that moves your jawline back, right? So you lose airway when you do that. And so she was able to diagnose it and help, and I literally went through, like, if you're a parent and took kids through this, the AGA device. I grew 4 millimeters of bone on both sides. My face looks different here. It took 4 years of palate expansion and awesome set of grills. I had super grill for 2 years.
And so how, if somebody's listening to this and is like, I think this is me, how do they find these dentists across the country?
Yeah, so you want to look for a dentist that does airway treatment.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, they will advertise that because there's not a lot of them. There is a new device. I've never used this, so I can't speak to its function, but it's called Vivos. And Vivos is like a removable retainer that enables you to do that. That wasn't in existence when I did it, so I went through all of the pain and suffering of being like a pubescent girl with a grill.
I remember one of my childhood friends had the grill, and you know what she would do? She would put like M&Ms up there so she could suck on them during class, and I was like, that is just so damn cool. But
you may not have the classic hallmarks that you would have for like sleep apnea. But what we do know is women are affected by sleep impairment like that at much lower levels of like oxygen desaturation or airway problems than men. And again, all of the studies have been done on men except for a few handfuls. So we get dismissed, right? I can tell you, we, especially in the clinic, we find it all the time. All the time. If you had teeth removed, like if you're a kid of the 70s and you had teeth removed because your teeth were crooked, the likelihood of that being a problem is going to be pretty high.
This is such useful information. I'm so grateful you're talking about this right now because women really are suffering, and the only question you're asked is, do you snore? No. Okay, well then you probably don't have sleep apnea, or maybe you do a sleep study, but then what's the course of action? A CPAP machine won't correct the root cause of the narrow airway. It will help you get oxygen to your brain, obviously, but
yeah, but the stats on like CPAP and BiPAP failure is so high because nobody wants to wear it, right? And I tried the bite guards, but that kind of gave me a lot of jaw pain. I would take them out in the middle of the night and I'd find them next to me like a scary set of dentures,
Totally.
That's not helping. So I literally had braces on. I went through all that, and then I immortalized myself on video so everybody else could appreciate it with me.
I did see one of your photos on your website with braces, and I was like, oh,
I did the whole 9 yards. I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and own it, man. So everybody else can feel cool with braces at 50.
Well, but you're normalizing the healing process through that, so God love you, because that is really, it's the Shero's journey you went on, and you are transforming the lives of women because of that. Okay, you educate your patients daily on the benefits of HRT. Why do you think so many women do push back on it? I mean, I'm guessing in your clinic they're there because they want help, but I find a lot of resistance often to HRT. So I would love to know your hot take on that.
Yeah. So I have definitely in our clinic, they seek us out. I think really what they want is somebody to help them weigh the evidence and understand. And especially with my company Minerva that provides telemedicine across the U.S., I provide education probably 2 or 3 times a week on webinars and conferences and summits. And I think what we have to understand is women have been told 2 different stories, right? And we have the preponderance of evidence that shows that hormone replacement therapy is protective against all-cause mortality, right? The data there is pretty clear. And we also have the Women's Health Initiative where data was sort of skewed and misrepresented that was so overblown and adopted by every media outlet, every medical doctor and everybody else, and then they terrified women. And I think what's happening is we still have people presenting that as this is the only study where it's value because it was a double-blind, placebo-controlled, la-da-la-da-la-da, which again, we have to understand that a lot of consensus documents and other medical decision-making about treatment have observational studies and other studies to help create a consensus. But we still have people doing that, and they all get mics, right? So every day we've got people presenting 2 stories. And so I think women, are unclear, number one, are they having menopausal symptoms? There's a study, I'm sure you probably read it, that came out that said like 60% of women that answered the survey did not know whether their symptoms were in the perimenopausal symptoms phase, right? So we're unclear. And then one day we'll hear that it's safe, and then somebody else is like, no, it'll kill you. And so I think they just want somebody to hold their hand. Yeah. To hold their hand and help them walk through it. I'm a PhD and I have MDs and nurse practitioners and physician assistants that work with me. And a lot of what I say is I'm the science geek. My job is to help those people and you sift through the data and understand where the data is, where the gaps are and where it's not. And I'm always clear, like we don't know these things very well because we didn't study it. And just, I think, help provide some guidance and take some of the fear away.
Yes. And also, the Women's Health Initiative study, even though it was using oral synthetic estrogens and synthetic progestins, there were still benefits to it. even women back in the day who were just taking Premarin still had significant benefits. And so it's fascinating to me that,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I want to point out one statistic, and I know you know the
Yeah.
statistic, but I just want to say it because I need to say it every time I talk
Please.
about the study. The women in the Women's Health Initiative that were on Premarin alone, which is horse mare urine, 13 different estrogens, showed a 23% reduced risk of breast cancer. Up until the 80s, high-dose estrogen was used for the treatment of estrogen-sensitive breast cancer. There is
Thank
no
you.
increased risk. The only thing we saw in the Women's Health Initiative was the synthetic medroxyprogesterone increased risk of heart attack and stroke. And even when we look at the statement that it increased risk to breast cancer, it wasn't statistically significant, and 8 years later it fell out. Like there was no statistical significance, and it really wasn't true. But yet that is what put the black box label on. And it just, I mean, you know this because you and I did my podcast, and I think I probably F-bombed a couple times.
You can
I'm so
F-bomb here
livid
all you
about
want.
it. You know, I'm so
Yeah.
livid about it.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge, disservice isn't even the right word. It's just a fuckery.
Travesty.
Yeah, it's a travesty.
And fuckery.
And fuckery of all of it. So it's devastating. But yeah, it really, there are so many things. I will unpack this on a future episode, but the message is don't be afraid, because we now know with bioidentical, correct me if I'm wrong, with bioidentical topical estrogens, the reduction in breast cancer risk is 60% is what I have learned. Is that what you have seen in your studies?
Yeah, I would say, if we look at, we have, we don't have a ton of studies here, but
Yeah.
we do see a risk, right? And I think 60% would be on the high side. I think we've got some other studies that show it's lower.
Okay.
And I know there was a poster session that came out in a menopause society last week of 120 million. They used a data bank. I can't wait for that.
That was at 120 million, not 120,000. Yes. And
yeah.
Yes.
I was like, I can't wait for that. It's going through peer review, so someone's checking all the statistical analysis, but the indicator, I wasn't at the conference because I was at another one, but the indications are going to be, at least from what it sounds, very, very revealing, right? And so we've told women all these times that they're going to die of breast cancer, and it's not true. And, I tell every woman they need to read Avram Blooming's book, Estrogen Matters, or listen to it on Audible at least 10 times. Just wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, anytime you just listen to it, right? Because we have data. There was never a single study that showed estrogen caused breast cancer except for 2. And it wasn't causal, it was when they added estrogen on top of tamoxifen. There was 2 studies that showed it might have a slight increased risk of reoccurrence. But we have other studies where they added the 2 together and it didn't do anything. So even that is indescript, right? So we've just been lying, right? We've been lying and presenting a front that we know the truth from this one single study, and that was not true.
Yeah. And I feel like I just constantly wonder why oncologists don't utilize this data when they're treating women.
Well, we also have academic arrogance and bias against studies that are old, right? Oh, they couldn't have had decent methodology. Oh, that's really old. Well, yeah, in a perfect world, as somebody who did a PhD, a lot of times you only go back about 5 years, with the idea being we're getting the latest of the research. Well, if we stopped looking in 2002, you're not going to have anything new, right? So we need to go back to 1998 and 1996 and 1994 and 1989 and review the methodology and look at those studies and actually use those to then gauge the entirety of the research. And we had good clinical studies looking at that risk because estrogen had been used as standard of care since the 40s, 1942. Like, come on, man.
Come on, man. It's ridiculous. Ugh, I know. I don't know what is going to topple over those ivory towers and actually bust down the doors of these academic offices. I don't know what it's going to take for medical schools to update their freaking curriculums already. I'm like, enough is enough. It's
I'm hoping
crazy.
to. That's what we're trying to build with Minerva, quite literally. Build a technology platform where women can download an app and kind of talk to Minerva and talk about their symptoms, learn about their symptoms, and attach it to their wearables. Understand, changes, my blood pressure, all of those things change. And then be able to provide women the ability to order their own labs without a gatekeeper and be able to see all of their real data in real time. And then if they do engage in hormone replacement, we have a team already that does hormone replacement, but we're also going to capture how you take it and what else are you taking, because that depends, that may change how you metabolize it. We want to capture all that data, provide it for a woman so it can be predictive, preventative, and proactive. But our goal is to be the largest longitudinal database of women's data, so we can collapse the 100-year gap of research in a matter of years. And NIH, bite me, I don't care. We don't need you.
Bite me, NIH. We don't need you.
Pharma, you can take a big flippin' leap too. I'd rather have an exclusive database in which we can understand and study without massive influence or begging an administration who doesn't give a shit about women for money, right? And we can look for patterns that are missing, right? That's literally the hill I'm dying on. That's my goal.
Yes, and my goal is, to utilize pharma to get all women access to hormones that's affordable, that they can do long term, and to get testosterone FDA approved for women. My God, it is not. I'm like, we give access, and this is not to, not to be controversial, but I'm going to be controversial. If transgender people can get access to testosterone, why can't menopausal women get access to testosterone, or perimenopausal women? There has to be equality there. There just has to be. It's
the fact that we
egregious.
don't have an FDA approved dose for women, so women are sort of jerry-rigging it off of a man's dose, which is significantly higher than what we need, unless they get a compounded form that's at a level that it should be. And I have a friend that's literally trying to reach FDA approval for a testosterone patch. They've gone through safety studies, they've gone through preclinical trials, they've gone through the first phase. All they're trying to do is raise capital to do the final phase. And she used to raise money for orphan diseases. So these are the diseases that like 4 people a year get. She said, Betty, I had an easier time raising 20, 30 million for that than I have getting a drug like testosterone patches approved for women. Right? Women receive less than 2% of all investment equity, private equity, venture capital money. I'm raising money right now to build a technology platform. It is like a million bad Tinder dates. because we are dismissed in the medical world and women are dismissed in the business world, despite the fact that we generally outperform male-led companies. And so there are people out here fighting for this, but they are desperate for money. The other thing, I'll speak to this too, is a lot of times women with money, especially later in life, they'll say, I'm going to do this for philanthropy. I'm like, okay, you want to know the best philanthropy you can ever do statistically is invest in women in business, because when a woman has money in business, her family improves, her coworkers improve, and the entire community improves, right? There is no other, like if you look at all the micro investing that happens, particularly in other countries, when you put money in a woman's hand to create business, the entire economy changes. When we give money to philanthropy, it helps, but it doesn't have the ripple effect like that.
Girl, I just want to stand here. I knocked into the plant next to me. I'm so excited. I'm just like, brava, brava. So take a bow, Dr. Betty. I know your time is tight, so I have a million more questions on testing and hormone metabolization, so we're going to have to get you back on for part 2. But this will be in the show notes, but where can people find you and just learn more about the incredible work you are doing for women?
Sure. You can find me at drbettimurray.com. And then if you are a woman looking for hormone replacement with a functional medicine lens, we do provide telemedicine across the United States, and that company is, you can find it at gethormonesnow.com. Makes it really easy. Minerva is the company's name. That's the goddess of science, medicine, and war. But you can find it at gethormonesnow.com. So, yeah.
I'm going to have
a podcast that I've had Esther on too, Menopause Mastery. So if you want to hear me rant, I'm there.
There we go. The goddess of hormone wars, Dr. Betty Murray. Thanks for coming on today, gorgeous girl.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, I could listen to you all day. I learned so much today, so thank you, really. This was, I think, my favorite episode to date.
Anytime
I know, and you are so brilliant, and I thought of you too, by the way, because I got in an Instagram war over Dr. Jen Kunter, and I was like, I have to talk to Betty.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth for like 3 weeks, and I was like, I'm gonna have to unfollow her because she makes me so hostile that I want to just like punch people.
Yeah, so I called her out on her misogyny, and people like went crazy, and
Yeah.
she commented too, and I was like, so you and I will have to talk offline
Yeah,
about that.
we got into tit for tat around observational studies and
Ugh.
yeah, and the MIDI bringing out supplements,
Oh, please, Mitty.
and I went
Ugh.
nuts on her, you know.
Good, good.
But I was so hostile afterwards. I was like, that's not good for my health. I gotta quit.
I know, that's it. I was like, girl, what are you doing? I was like, don't use your energy that way. But I did
know,
think of you.
yeah,
I did think of you.
Yeah.
All right, gorgeous girl, flame on, and we'll get you back.
Thank you.
Okay, talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Beautiful.
Isn't she so crazy brilliant? I love her. Like,
I
obsessed.
was gonna see just about the airway
Mouth
and sleeping.
thing? Hello. I was like, what?
No, and I just didn't know that the not snoring,
I didn't either.
that your airway just it just hit a nerve because last night I just had no sleep
Oh,
because
no.
I dread going to bed because
Oh,
I'm supposed to
no.
wear the machine and I
Yeah.
can't, like it's just awful. It's so
Oh,
bad. So when she's
Brian,
talking, I was like,
I'm
oh,
so
right
sorry.
on. That's such interesting information.
Yeah. Do you think it will change your?
I think so.
Gosh.
I
I'm
just
so
need to
sorry.
see another doctor or something. I mean, I've been going to a sleep doctor for a while, and he's like, try a different mask, try a different mask.
Have you worked with? I told you about Brian Us in Fairfield, USS?
No.
Dr. Brian Us. He
Oh, I think you
is a
mentioned that. What is he?
functional medicine doctor.
Yeah.
I think he would be really helpful for you.
I'll see anyway. You know what I mean? Like you got to take care of this shit. 'Cause,
I
like,
know,
I'm so
and
sick of being tired.
He's a real dude's dude. He's an awesome guy. My friend's she's my friend now, but one of my former clients
Mhm.
told me about him because her husband goes to him,
For
and then she started going to him.
and what specifically for? Like for
Health issues, midlife struggles, menopause,
Oh,
he
wow.
does all of it. I think you do need some testosterone, but that may not solve the physical issue of you're not sleeping. So,
I know.
but he can be, I think, call his office and see if
I
you
will,
think he could be a
absolutely,
fit for
'cause
him.
It's funny. Like at this age, it's like getting recommendations of doctors is so great and so important. Like
Yeah.
I'm finding all these different people. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like
And he's just a really nice guy. Like I've called him because I was like, I want to know who you are. And
have him on the show.
well, yeah, perhaps. I
Oh,
don't.
it's a perhaps.
Well,
Oh, it's
I
not
don't.
really related.
Yeah, I don't think he's specifically doing
Like
menopause,
yeah.
but he's a trained physical therapist too, and he
Oh.
does PT with you if you've got any
Well,
joint
that's what I've been going
alignment
to.
issues.
I think sounds like such like my mom. Well, I've been going to this PT,
Yeah,
and it's just because I just like back issues.
Yeah.
But boy, to combine them into one
yeah,
person.
one-stop shop. So check him out. Let me know.
I
what you
will
think.
absolutely.
Check him out.
And in the meantime,
In the meantime, we gotta do the intro and the outro.
Yep. And
Okay.
all right, whenever you are ready.
Today on the Midlife Realignment Podcast is Dr. Betty Murray, the founder and CEO of the Minerva Project, a groundbreaking AI-powered platform and telemedicine service that personalizes menopause management by integrating systems, wearable data,
Symptoms.
integrating
Oh, is that a
that's what it says in her bio.
integrating symptoms?
Yep.
Do you want me to change?
I think it's integrating symptoms, wearable data, and hormone metabolism. You think it's systems?
No, it says symptoms, but you said systems.
Oh, I did? Okay,
Yes.
let's start over.
Let's do it. I'm talking, baby.
Sorry. All right. Today on the Midlife Realignment Podcast, we are joined by Dr. Betty Murray, the founder and CEO of the Minerva Project, a groundbreaking AI-powered platform and telemedicine service that personalizes menopause management by...
What's so funny?
I just was like, don't fuck this up.
Oh,
All right.
you can fuck
Can I
it
say,
as much as you want.
I'm just going to start over with a groundbreaking AI.
Oh yeah, you want to pick? Yeah.
groundbreaking
Oh, wait, try
AI-powered.
one more time. You took a deep breath. No, you took a deep breath. I know it's gonna be hard to edit.
You want me to take a deep
No, I
breath?
don't. Like you did, and it just made it was like it'll be hard to edit. So just go.
Okay. A groundbreaking AI-powered platform and telemedicine services that personalizes menopause management by integrating symptoms, wearable data, and hormone metabolism with treatment in all 50 states. A functional medicine expert with 20 plus years of experience and host of the Menopause Mystery podcast, she previously founded Living Well Dallas Functional Medicine Center and has appeared on Fox News, NBC, and CBS. Shared the stage with and CBS, and shared the stage with health leaders like Dr. Mark Hyman. Dr. Betty is a wealth of information, and you are going to come away empowered and educated like no one's business. Enjoy the show.
Fantastic. I don't know if it matters, but you
Did I
didn't.
fuck up again?
No, you didn't put an S on something. I don't know if you said.
Symptoms.
You said telemedicine. I think services, which is fine.
Oh, that's fine.
Fuck that. Yeah.
Fuck that.
Okay.
All right,
great.
sorry I messed that up.
No, it's okay.
All right, and then are we able to redo that outro? You can do it on the. You
From
don't
going
have to
forward,
do
yeah.
it on the first 5 episodes.
Yeah.
if
Let's
you can do it on.
let's do. Actually, let me just.
I
No,
just
I'll
emailed
run
it to you yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to put it up on the tele?
Can you?
On the tele?
On the tele, yes. And thank you for doing. You know, I was saying to Jamie, like airplanes use the most gas during takeoff. I know it was a cluster of
Oh no,
episodes
that's.
you
Are
had
you
to
kidding me?
produce.
These are small little things. Like some.
Okay.
This is like, of course, like this is. No, we're on. We're all I think aligned now, and
Okay,
like,
good.
we'll go.
Good,
Going
good.
forward. Okay. I'll just put this
Okay.
right in there, so you can just rock this out.
Okay, great.
And.
I know Jamie rocked out the media kit. She did like
Oh,
live
awesome.
graphics, yeah, and she was, she was like, "This is a lot," and I said, "Well, delegate to someone else on your team if you don't want to do it," and then she totally did it.
Oh.
It was like,
Perfect. I love it.
I love this teleprompter. I'm obsessed.
I know.
It's so good.
I have a bunch of recording to do over this weekend, and I'm just loaded it all in. Why is it not?
So
Come on,
nice.
baby.
Oh, the
come
highlighter,
on.
yeah. Isn't that funny?
Come on. Oh my god.
I've been where you are.
Can I ask you a question? Why is this not? I'm doing white.
Yes.
It's not.
Do you have text edit? Do you have like the thing that removes all the formatting?
I don't know, but wait a minute. Nope. Well,
There we
fuck it.
go.
Let's just try that.
I'll do it.
Oh, okay, and of course now it's. Oh my god.
I can probably do it this
Nope,
way. There you
I'm
go.
Not having you. Okay.
Now, subscribe. People are confused because subscribing, like now following is subscribing, but at some point we may have. So
Yeah.
can I say subscribe or follow?
Yeah. Totally. Because
Okay.
it'll just cover everything. Because it's
Okay.
just
Okay.
And remember, this is just audio.
Just audio.
So you can just kick back.
Ready?
Yep.
If you love this episode, subscribe or follow the Midlife Realignment podcast wherever you listen. Or no, I shouldn't say
Midlife Run, wherever you
subscribe
listen.
to follow or subscribe to the Midlife Realignment.
Yep.
Okay. If you love this episode, follow or subscribe to the Midlife Realignment wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, and leave a review to help other women find this show.
Great. And this is something we could easily tweak as we go on. Like
yes.
maybe a few more episodes you feel like we want to tweak this. It's
Okay,
easy.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we need to do anything else? So we did the intro, we did that. Okay,
I just
good.
want to look at, well, you know what? Let me just come up with a date to
Oh,
reschedule.